Hi, I'm Tina Folsom and I'm a romance author. I wish I could be with you at the Women's Fiction Conference in Matera, but unfortunately I'm stuck here in California. Not the worst place to be. But Liz has asked me to talk to you a little bit about self-publishing today since I can't be there in person. Self-publishing has been a wonderful thing for me. I would not be a published author today, and I would certainly not be an author who can make a wonderful living if it weren't for self-publishing. I started out probably like many of you did. I wrote books, I sent queries to agents and publishers. I really tried to get an agent or a publisher interested in me. But nobody would bite, so to speak, not even with my vampire romances, because obviously vampires were dead already. So I could have just easily given up and said, okay, writing isn't for me, or I will never get published. But then I discovered something. I discovered that you could publish your books yourself, that you could e-publish them. So you didn't need a big publisher to get print books out there and get them into the stores. I discovered Amazon at that point. That was mid-2010. I put out my first few short stories around that time. I then also put my first full-length book out there, Samson's Lovely Mortal, the first in my Scan Gods Vampire series. And in the first month, I made $20, $30. So my husband was, you've got to find another job. This is not going to work out. But I negotiated with him, and I was granted 1 year to try this publishing thing. So I just hunkered down. I wrote book after book, and I put them out there. I published Amoris Hellion in July 2010. I published a Greek book about Greek gods in the summer of 2010. I put another standalone book out there that I had written previously, Lawful Escort. I published that. And then in December 2010, I published the third book in my Scan Gods Vampire series. So I already had 7 books in total out there, of which 3 were short stories. The rest were full-length books. And in 2010, in December, when I published my third book in a series, I finally saw things take off. Previously, in June, July, I started making a little bit more money. I started suddenly making $1,000 a month, which I thought was outstanding at the time. But then I had no idea what the capacity was, what the potential was to make in this kind of business. I saw it in December 2010, and I was totally blown away. That month, with 7 or 8 books out, I made $32,000 in 1 single month. I had no idea this was possible. I certainly thought it was a fluke, but it wasn't a fluke, because the next year got even bigger. By now you're probably asking how I did it. So let's start a little bit first with where I'm actually selling my books. I've already mentioned Amazon, and Amazon is certainly the biggest game in town, at least in the US, most likely also in Europe. However, it's not the only place where you can sell your books, and I would strongly recommend to go with as many retailers as you can. It certainly worked for me. I also sell my books at Barnes & Noble. Unfortunately, that option is not available for European residents. Unless you go through Smashwords, which is a consolidator and can distribute your books into several different retailers. You can also sell your books on Kobo, which is a Canadian company and has excellent outlets in foreign countries. They sell a lot of books in Canada, in Australia, in the UK, in some European countries, and also in New Zealand. So you can certainly try Kobo. I make a nice living from Kobo alone. You can also sell your books through iBooks. That's Apple. The only problem is if you want to upload to Apple directly, you actually need a Mac. They will not let you upload your books from a PC. I guess they are a little proprietary about these things. However, don't miss out on Apple. Apple is now represented in 51 territories, and you can sell very well in the US with Apple, in the UK, and also in European countries. They also have added a lot of South American countries, so if you have Spanish language books, that is a good avenue for you. Now let's talk about the product itself, the books. And the first thing a reader will see are your covers. And I want to visually show you what I mean by having good covers. I'm showing you 8 covers. All 8 covers belong to the Skangar's Vampire series, which is my best-selling series. They also portray best what I mean about branding and about covers that are recognizable and covers that draw you in and deliver on the promise of your stories. These covers all have the same coloring, the same typeface. My name is always in the same place, always the same size. When people look at these covers, even in thumbnail, they can easily distinguish what these covers are about. It always screams sexy romance. It always tells you the place. You can easily see that the backgrounds are in San Francisco. I use the bridges very often. People can definitely see what this is about, and that's what you want. You also want to be recognizable, and with my coloring, people instantly jump to the covers and instantly know what series they belong to, and that's what you want. People don't have time to often read the title on it or the details, the descriptions, but they will recognize the pictures. So go and look at the top 100 at Amazon or at other retailers and have a look at the covers. See what covers work. Look at your own genre to see what covers are selling best. And then look at the covers on your books that you're planning to publish. And look at it with a critical eye. And have your friends look at it. Have your colleagues look at it. And have them critique your covers. And that's what I still do with my friends and my colleagues. Whenever I get a new cover, I send it to some of my author friends, and they rip it apart. A cover will draw the reader in. But then the next thing is your blurb. You really have to have a blurb that pulls people in, that has a hook that gets people interested in reading more. Because the next thing you want them to do is click on the book to get a sample and read your sample. So that also means you have to have a killer first and second chapter, because that's generally the amount of text they will get for free before they have to buy the book. Whether the reader buys your book after reading the sample can also depend on your price. So let's talk about pricing a little bit. I've experimented a lot with pricing very early on to see what level would work best for my books. You can set your price as low as 99 cents with most of the retailers. Some retailers even let you price your book at $0, and we'll come back to that, why that would be advantageous. And you can price your book at $4.99, at $5.99, at $6.99. But if you're a debut author, I would strongly suggest that you stick below $5 with your pricing. You can pick levels like $2.99, $3.99. For me personally, the $4.99 level has worked really, really well. And I actually noticed that if I do a sale for 99 cents for a full-length book, that I actually sell less. And the reason for that might be that some people might equate a cheap price with bad quality. So you've got a good product, you have a well-written book, you've got a great blurb with a hook to pull people in, you've got a fabulous cover, you've priced it right. So why aren't you selling? Well, it's all about discoverability. That's the big thing. It's like real estate. Location, location, location. And in this case, it's search results. Search results, search results. So what do I mean by that? Well, people will look for certain books. They will put keywords into the search engine at Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, at Kobo, or at Apple, and they will look for what they're interested in. So your book has to have certain keywords associated with it for people to find you. So if you're writing a romance, you want to have romance keywords in there. You want to make sure that if people are looking for a cowboy romance, your book is tagged cowboy romance so that they can find it and it'll show up in the search results. What this is called is metadata. Metadata is anything like tags and keywords, anything that can be put into data so that it can be associated with your book and it can help return search results. So you want to make sure that you categorize your book into the right categories. For example, at Amazon, they will allow you 2 categories. So let's say your romance is a vampire romance in historical Venice, and I write stuff like that. So you would categorize it as a historical romance, but at the same time, you'd also put it in a paranormal romance section. So that's your 2 categories. So people will be able to browse in those sections and find you there. But in addition to that, you will also attach certain keywords to it. I will attach the keyword vampire to it. I will attach the keyword fantasy. I will also attach gothic. I will attach anything that might help me be found. I want my book to be as searchable as possible. So how can you improve your discoverability? Well, let's get back to the 0 pricing policy. As I mentioned earlier, you can price your book at $0 at certain retailers. For example, Apple and Kobo will allow you to price your book at 0, which means you can effectively give it away. Well, the good thing about that is, especially if you have several books in a series, that you will make the first book in your series free, and people will start reading this book. If they like it, they will want to know how the story continues. They will want to read the next book in the series. So basically, you're giving away the first book in the series to entice them to buy the other books in the series at full price. So I hope I've given you a few pointers, some inspiration, and a good start to get started in self-publishing. I hope you have a great conference. I wish I could be there with you. Thank you, Liz, for letting me do this little podcast, and I hope you all have a wonderful time. I will join you next year in Matera. Bye.